Welcome to this week's meeting of the Rockland Board of Selectmen, coming to you live from WRPS from the H. Bernard Monahan Memorial Room at Rockland Town Hall. On the agenda this week, we've got an elementary school feasibility study information, water outfall and drainage at Union Point, and ambulance billing. Now here's the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Ed Kimball.
Welcome. Would you all please rise and join us for a Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Ryan, would you like to lead us? Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening and welcome. Please be advised this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded by WRPS for playback on Comcast Channel 14 and Verizon Channel 31. It will also be available for online video on-demand viewing at WRPSRockland.com within 24 hours of its conclusion, as are other recently recorded meeting and community events. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. Okay, next up on the agenda, we don't have anything for open forum. So we have item number 2, minutes, open session minutes of November 21st, 2017.
Make a motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a unanimous vote. Thank you. Under unfinished business, we have item number 3, the elementary school feasibility study submittals. Mr. Chalker.
Mr. Chairman, you received a letter which outlined all of the requirements and asked us to approve them. So the board needs, I believe, we have to submit 3 originals of the feasibility study authorization, A through 6, A through C, 2 copies of the certification of legal counsel, which are in the back room, a certified copy of the town vote entered into in all the local charters, and a certified copy of the local governing body appropriating and authorizing the full amount of the feasibility study's cost, which we have also certified in the back room. You need authorization to sign the 3 copies in the back for the feasibility study agreement. Get the right word. So it's a simple vote, but I did include in your package a copy of that agreement.
Okay, any questions from the board? Or?
It's good to me. Exciting.
So do we need the school committee to read it into the,
It's 16 pages
I'm
long.
only kidding, only kidding. Little sense of humor there.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you. I'll sign that and then we'll get it
They'll
over
be
to the
available
school.
tomorrow.
I'll sign it tonight and they can have it either
Tomorrow.
tonight or first thing in the morning.
Good.
Great, thank
I'll
you.
be seeing just one sign, you,
Yeah, I sign on behalf of the town.
beauty.
It's what we had previously voted at.
I know, I'm sure we did.
Town meeting, so. Next up on unfinished business, we have item number 4, water outfalls and drainage at Union Point. We have VHB Engineering and Selectman Ms. Hall. Who would like to?
Yep.
Oh, we need to turn it on, Alan.
Oh, you did.
Oh, is it on?
That's our techie over here.
Want to kill the light behind you, maybe?
Oh, yeah, that worked.
Once that powers up, I'll write it out.
Oh, well,
Can we go?
I'll just take it 30
Maybe
seconds.
not on. How are we gonna see it? Let's see.
John Clifford. John Clifford.
While that gets going, for the record, my name is Griffin Ryder. I'm a senior project
Did
manager
John
with
Clifford
VHB. With me tonight, I have Hugh Hahn, who's a senior project manager and principal with VHB, and Tom Berkeley from Elstar,
All
the
done.
development company who owns the development. We have a short slideshow that we'd like to present to you tonight. Basically just kind of go over some of the history of the stormwater design that has happened as the development has changed over the years, and the things that have been done to date, what we're looking at and how we're approaching it, to make sure that, you know, as the development comes online and ultimately more impervious areas created, making sure that we're mitigating for that with the appropriate stormwater measures to do so. So just a quick introduction before we get into some more of the meat of what we're looking at. So this project originally went through a MEPA process, which is the Mass Environmental Policy Acts, in '06 and '07. And during that process, a stormwater master plan was developed, to show that that project was not going to create any detriments anywhere. So when that was developed, the program is a little bit different to what it is today. And there's other things that have changed along the lines too. And plus it was 11 years ago. So since that time, we've been engaged by LSTAR to not only update the proposed conditions model, but also update the existing conditions model to make sure we account for things that have changed during that time, which includes some new information, new data on stormwater rainfall intensities. I think we all know rainfall intensities have increased a little bit over the years. So that's been taken into account with the new models, and then also some new soils evaluations that's been done by the USDA and Natural Resources Conservation Service. So that's just kind of an introduction of where we're at, and today I just want to kind of walk you through sort of how we're approaching it, how we're looking at the existing and proposed conditions, and creating a more dynamic model from what was developed in the original MEPA analysis. So Hugh, if you could switch over to the next slide. I apologize if you can't see. I believe you have handouts. So this, I guess I should stay close to the mic here. On this first slide, what you'll see here is this is an existing conditions, aerial and existing conditions photo with the boundary shown in purple, which is the essential boundary of the Union Point site. And then within the boundary, we've got, this just shows shaded in blue. We've got, those are wetland areas that have been, wetland resource areas that have been flagged and whatnot throughout the design process and evaluation of this property. You see the town line that comes here. The town line is in red. We've got Weymouth, Rockland, and Abington. And then also in blue, what we have here, and you can see the blue kind of connects this blue line connects some of these areas in blue to the north, down to the south. And what this blue line represents is, and this is an important piece of this project, this blue line represents what starts out as twin 42-inch pipes, which pick up drainage that is tributary to this wetland system, and they ultimately convey the water from north to south. There is a transition from twin 42-inch pipes to twin 48-inch pipes. That happens right about here. And then from there, it continues down to where it discharges into what we call the head of the Tacan outfall. That's an important piece because one of the things that this site, one of the interesting things about this site is it's a big site, which we all know. But across the site, as it was developed for an airfield, it's very flat. Runways are flat. So back in the day when this was developed to be able to land and have airplanes take off, a lot of this area was filled. So from here down to that point, there's not a lot of drop in grade. And I'll talk about that a little more as we get into this. So this really just is intended to show sort of the overall project area. We've got Route 18 to the west, we've got Weymouth Street to the east, and then we've got French's Stream west, which runs along this edge, and then French's Stream east, which comes down here, and they ultimately converge sort of just off the bottom of the page. Oh, am I too loud?
No.
All right. I'm too loud. You can say it. No, sorry. So that just kind of gives our orientation of where we're at. The next slide is basically the same graphic, but what it shows is the site is very big, but we aren't developing the whole site. I believe the overall site's about 1,400 acres, where our focused development is about 400 acres of that 1,400. So there's a lot of open space that's going to remain. So what we show here is basically there's 3 shaded areas, and those shaded areas represent sort of the ultimate development limits as we're looking at them today. There's a shaded area of which is, I think it's green. It's hard to see on here. We've got a green to the left side. And up here, and what that represents all the water that is tributary to French's Stream west. One step back before I get into the other areas. This site, most of the water from the site that we're redeveloping goes through the central portion and goes through those twin pipes that we just talked about. There are 2 other discharges from the site that go in different directions. We have a discharge that runs to the east and then north, which goes to Old Swamp River. We've got a discharge which runs to the Tacan outfall, which I mentioned earlier, which joins up with French's Stream. And then we have a discharge that goes to French's Stream west. And why that's important is we need to look at the existing conditions to make sure we understand what area is going to each discharge point. And then when we look at the proposed conditions, we got to make sure we're not changing those areas too much because we don't want to create unintended issues. So it's important to really develop that. And we've taken a closer look from what was done as part of the original MEPA analysis, because we had to really drill down on some things because we found some interesting things with the model that we really wanted to make sure were correct, because this is an important development and we want to make sure we're doing it right. So basically what we have is we've got 3 shaded, overall there's 3 shaded areas. There's a green, which is mostly on the left and a little bit up on the north here. And that is the area that is tributary to French's Stream west. We've got a blue area in the middle, which you'll see is the larger portion of the overall redevelopment site. And that is the area that is, I would say probably 85% of that area is tributary to these twin pipes. And then there's a little bit of overland flow that goes directly to the Tacan. And like I said, those pipes are flat. So a lot of times what we have in the existing conditions is when we get even relatively small storm events, that pipe ends up flowing pretty full. And some of the low areas that are adjacent to the runways, those might see water for a puddle for a little bit of time. That's fine when it was a naval air base. As long as those runways were clean, they were cool. When we go to redevelop this and we've got development, we can't have that ponding. So that's something that we've really had to look at and make sure, how do we eliminate that ponding without sending more water downstream and creating issues with that. And that's been the larger part of our study. So this is the existing conditions and how we've looked at that and just describing the 3 main discharge points. One thing to note, the drop in elevation from the top where this pipe picks up to where it drops off is about 8 feet. And it seems like a lot, but it's over about 3,600 feet. So what that means, for people who are used to drainage, it's about a 0.2% slope. Generally, you want to leave a minimum slope for drainage pipe, 0.5, maybe if it's a larger pipe, 1%. So that's just something to think about. It's something that we're having to work with, because we can't make this higher and make that lower. It just wouldn't work with the natural resources that we need to maintain and the water flows that we need to maintain as well. Here, if you could go to the next slide. This next slide is essentially, in some parts it looks like the same divides, but it's a little bit different. What this is an overlay of the proposed conditions development, and this might be one version back, but it's very close in terms of, as the versions of development are evolving now, we're really not seeing many major changes to impervious area. So we're comfortable, as we move forward, we continue to update it, but we've gotten to the point where we've got the development program and understand what the impervious breakdown is going to be. So again, this shows, it's a little harder to see because there's some other colors associated with the development, but we've got a green area which continues to go to the west, the blue area which continues to go to our blue pipes, our twin pipes that run through here. The orange is intended to show where we would relocate those pipes. There's probably some relocation of those pipes in through here as well, which we're studying as part of our analysis to make sure we relocate them correctly and at the right grades and whatnot. And then we also have the purple area, which is, as we talked about, the area that ends up flowing over to the east and north up to Old Swamp River. Some of the things that I just want to point out on this plan are there's some surface water features that are shown on this plan, and these are intended to provide not only, as the design moves forward, not only detention, but also some water quality benefits. These are shown, there's one here, there's another one over here, and as we go to the next slide, I'll dig down a little more to show you some other stuff that we're looking at doing. One thing to note is that although we're still in the process of getting the master plan, finished up for stormwater. And why is that important? We all know there's been developments out there. There are developments that are out there today. The developments that have been developed today the stormwater has been studied for each one of those developments, and that's gone through approval process with the SRA. And there's also been a peer reviewer who has looked at that as well and provided comments. But those have all been developed in a way that on their own, they're providing the appropriate mitigation and the appropriate water quality treatment that's needed to meet the minimum requirements. So, the things that are being built today, it's not like we're kicking the stormwater detention can down the road. The things that are being built today are being mitigated appropriately. Now, when we go to do our proposed full development, we'll have to move some of those pieces around, but we're going to do so in a way that we're doing it at the right time and not creating, unintended consequences with that. That's kind of the proposed conditions at a high level. If you can go to the next slide. Now, I don't intend to go over everything on the slide because we will all fall asleep. But this is sort of how we're evaluating this. And as you can see, there's a lot of information on here. It's a little hard to see, but one of the things that didn't show up, this is that open water body that I talked about that was on that last slide. There's another one that we're looking at putting in over here. You can see these are some of the existing basins. There's one here. There's another one here. There's actually another one here. And then here as well. Those have been developed associated with the parkway. The rec center development, which is going on up in this area, there's some stormwater management features associated with that development that are being constructed, again, to make sure we're not increasing rates. But there are some major moves that we're going to have to do to make the stormwater plan work. So we're working with Elstar to figure out, okay, as things get developed, when do we put things in and how do we make things work in a manner that makes sense and also, economically and from a construction standpoint. So we've got some significant stormwater storage up in this area. What we're looking at doing is some constructed wetlands. Those have performed very well throughout the site. There's been a number of those that are along the parkway. One of the issues or opportunities that we have with this site is we've got shallow depth to groundwater. So constructed wetlands are good best management practices to address that or to mitigate for that shallow depth to groundwater. And we've really seen some nice, the outcomes of some nice designs associated with what's out there today. They're working as they should be. The plants are alive. I think we're seeing some wildlife and ecological functions out there. And they've served pretty well. So we like the way that those have worked. We'd like to continue to do that where we can. We will also look to do some subsurface detention, and that might just end up being a big concrete vault, essentially. There's a bunch of different ways that we can do that. There's different manufacturers that we've worked with. But basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create, because we are increasing the impervious area, which in turn means there's going to be more runoff because there's more impervious area. When it rains, there's more runoff from pavement than there is from grass. So with that, with each increase in impervious area, we got to make sure we're increasing the detention. So what that means is that detention will hold that water for a longer period of time and allow that to flow out at the rate of pre-development, which is consistent with how we would design whether it's a small site or a large site. Depending on the size of the site, you might look at a different modeling software, but that's the general approach that you take with anything. You can't let more water flow off your property at a faster rate. Unless you do. We would have to study it probably till it discharged to the ocean. That's you don't want to go there. So what this shows sort of how we've been working things. We're looking at, there's a lot of information on here. We're looking at elevations. We're looking at conveyance. We're making sure, because the site is flat and we need to have slopes on our pipes. Sometimes we can't go as long as we want to, so we got to look at how we make that work. So that's what this shows. This is a breakdown. So there's a number of other colors you'll see here. And it's kind of, breakdown of that last slide that you saw where the larger blocks. So, these areas that are a couple different colors are tributary to Old Swamp. The stuff through the center is still going to the TACAN, but it's being rerouted, a little bit here and there to make sure we're holding it back appropriately. And same for the French's Stream West. So that kind of, in a nutshell, is sort of how we've been approaching this. I know there's a lot of information here. I'm happy to go over any of it in more detail. But like I said, I don't really want to bore you to death. There is one more slide that we have and this is, we showed sort of our enhancement of the proposed conditions analysis. This is really hard to see, but this is the existing conditions. This is sort of the west side and then the east side, and how we've been breaking that down to make sure we're comfortable with the way the existing conditions is modeled and that it's working the right way. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or explain anything that I may have gone over too quickly.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I know we've spoken, actually, I think I spoke with you. I have had an opportunity to go out and view the site, both when it's raining and when it's not.
Yep.
And there's just a few things that were brought to my attention that I was hoping, some of your explanation here may address some of them, but both good and I would say both good and questionable things. Unfortunately, I don't think you guys have photos, but the board does. If you guys want to start from the back, if you're in the same order as me. I tried to label the photos, but it looks like the labels went on different pages. But we're starting with this picture. So this picture here, so you guys are aware, this is the outfall into French's Stream West, coming from the constructed wetland detention basin that comes off of is that Trotter?
Trotter,
By
yes.
Trotter.
Yep.
And I took this when it was raining. It was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I was out there, it was pouring. And the pipe going into the constructed wetland was at least halfway full. And it appeared to me like the constructed wetland was working as it was intended to work. It was at two different elevations. The top part of the basin was filling up first. It was overflowing into the bottom half of the basin. And as the bottom half of the basin's water elevation rose, it was discharging out of this pipe. And this pipe was only about 1/8 full. Well, the entry pipe coming in was over half full, which to me shows that it's detaining water. So this was peak flow, very heavy rainfalls, and we had very little discharge coming from the constructed wetland into French's Stream West. And I was really happy with what I saw. Actually, the maintenance on the area surrounding the end of the outfall pipe looked really good too. So it wasn't like impeding flow or anything, and I thought that looked really good. On the same day, I went over to the Tacan outfall, and you can't really, unfortunately, you can't see the pipe, but this was running at over half full. Same day, same amount of rain, clearly less detention working there. But as you pointed out, this is the pipe that has the lower slope, so it's not moving with the same velocity. It's filling up. It's not emptying the pipe as quickly.
And that, in some conditions, that pipe is operating under pressure. So we're pushing more pressure down on that pipe to push more flow through, which is making it flow more.
Based upon your slides here, they don't. I was hoping I would see like a slide with the I don't know if it's the ortho. I guess this is it, right? With the ortho, with the earth, underneath it.
Oh, the first one might be the.
Yeah, but then you don't have your catchment boundaries on the first one, so I don't know which areas. It's okay, but I'm wondering.
I'd be happy to provide.
No, it's okay. I'm just wondering if that area that is discharging to this particular pipe still is in its, we'll call it, pre-existing asphalt stage. Are we talking areas where hasn't been development, but it's it's still impervious? Or is there pervious in that blue catchment area?
There's.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's in the
blue
where
area.
it stands today.
Yes.
There's still a fair amount of impervious area associated with the runways.
Yes.
There is some pervious area in between the runways that we will be replacing with pervious area.
Right. But I'm just wondering if that's contributing to this additional flow. Is this just additional flow, or is it just just impeded flow? I guess.
I think it's impeded flow. It's pressurized flow. If I were to start from scratch on this site, that 48-inch pipe would probably be an 8x8 box or a 6x8 box in order to convey the flow appropriately, because that pipe is somewhat undersized and is creating pressure, which creates unintended ponding. So one of the things that we're looking at doing and basically is lowering that pressure and allowing for more flow at a lower elevation, which allows for a little more flow into the head of the tacan, but it doesn't create more flow on the out.
Yep.
Because the out is real where the tacan, I think that picture was the inflow.
Yep.
There's downstream of that. There's a weir that was constructed.
Yeah, I have a photo of that too.
Okay,
We'll show you.
in the tacan, which we'll touch on in a minute.
Yeah. No, go ahead. You can.
So that weir that was constructed in the tacan, that is what really provides the detention. That weir I believe has twin 24-inch pipes that run out of it. So just by intuition, you got twin 48-inch pipes coming in and twin 24-inch pipes coming out. It's actually almost 8 times the amount of area that's coming in that's going out.
All right, so I guess you would expect to see some, if that's providing the detention, you would expect to see some overflow or some
Yes.
additional flow there, okay. And then this next photo, which looks like nothing, which is kind of why I took it, looks like that is the area, I don't know if it's a ditch or a swale that comes out of detention that enters this ditch from further upstream. So let me see if I can show you a map. So this area right here, it's like a swale or something. It looks like there's a ditch that carries from detention up here.
Okay.
And what I thought was interesting is during the rain, there was absolutely no flow from that ditch, from that particular swale, which comes down from detention into this ditch. There was nothing. If you stepped over all this grass, you could find that there was flow coming down, but it was so limited that it wasn't actually reaching the ditch, which is good. Again, so you have your peak runoff and you have less
And
flow.
that stone
So
kind
I
of
thought
slows it
that was
down a
good.
little bit and allows it to sink back into the ground.
Yep. So I thought
which
that
is
was
ideal.
good. So I'm just, and this is that weir you were talking about with the twin
Yes,
pipes.
twin
So
24 foot, yeah.
the reason I took this photo was that the trash rack clearly hasn't been cleaned in a really long time, so it's just a maintenance issue. But that's actually, I took it because that's actually, even though the maintenance wasn't done, it's actually a benefit to us downstream because it's causing an impediment for the water to flow through the pipes. But I just wanted to take that for maintenance purposes. But what your explanation is that this particular weir with these two pipes, also because they're smaller size than for the pipes coming up, is that they provide like a detention tool.
That's really what's holding
Okay.
it back. And I think you can kind of see, because I assume these were taken at the same time.
Yeah, they were,
You know,
yep.
the one coming in is full, and the one going out doesn't look like, I mean, it's more close to full, and the ones going out, which are smaller,
Correct.
are quite a bit less.
All
So
right.
It's serving its purpose.
So that was my evaluation of those French's Stream, we'll call it east and west, when I was out there. And then I also took the time to sort of just walk around some of the development sites and just found some, basic stuff that there was I think I mentioned this to you too, there was a hand-dug ditch up behind the Pulte? What's
Yes.
Pulte?
Yeah.
The Pulte development, and I was kind of perplexed by the ditch. It seemed to lead, I took a few photos of the ditch so you guys can see it. I don't know when it was dug or whom it was dug by or whether it's old or new, but it seemed to lead to a drain that was sandbagged. So if you can see, so this was the sandbag drain, and I'm just wondering, this drain actually, it's sandbag, so obviously water doesn't get in there, but it actually goes under the walking trail and then has an outfall or an outlet into French's Stream. So can you tell me, do you know anything about this or how it? It's near the pond. It's a little bit before the pond, but it's on the walking trail, like right behind the Pulte developments.
I'm not intimately familiar with it, but I think what it might be a foundation drain for some of the Pulte buildings that
Yep.
they might have just dug out to allow conveyance during construction, and then they'll come back and put the pipe in.
Why would this be? Why would this be sandbag though? Just to keep
it might
just
be
regular stormwater from getting in the ditch and
Yes,
getting in there?
and because if it's wide open like that, it could just flow. It could take all that debris
okay.
and
Put it
have
in
it flow in there, and you
sediment,
could
yeah.
see something like the trash rack where it gets
Yeah,
completely
gross.
clogged and creates other issues.
Okay, all right. So, but the thought is that those foundation drains would have been part of the review with the SRA board.
They should,
Yeah,
yes, they
okay.
should have been.
All right. And the only other thing I took photos of is just, again, because it's a little pet peeve of mine, but I really love stormwater treatment. I think it's great. I really want to push more stormwater treatment, but it doesn't work if we don't maintain it appropriately. So, well, some of the stuff I saw was tree box filters, I have to say, are my favorite. Love them, and I love these Filterras. They are my favorite tree box filters because they do not require a ton of maintenance in comparison to other tree box filters. So, but we do need to make sure they work. We got to make sure that they're being cleaned appropriately, and there's just like this one has plants growing out of the inlet for the drain and just catch basically. And like I said, I've managed a drain program before. It's a problem for all municipalities, and I understand that, but we'd like to see just better maintenance on those types of things as well.
Yeah, and we'll make sure with each of the developments, we always include an operation and maintenance plan, and we work with L-Star to develop that. So we'll continue to do that. We are helping to monitor as during construction. Actually, the site has a SWIP associated with it,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, and we are helping L-Star to monitor that after storm events to make sure
Great.
things are being done appropriately during construction. We're not creating sedimentation downstream or
That was
into
the
water
other thing I
bodies.
was going to mention, is
and-
I know that that's the contractor's responsibility to really stay on their perimeter controls and
Yeah.
their erosion controls, but I noticed, since I was out there when it was raining, that they weren't really functioning because they had not been properly maintained. But I do understand that that's also just another thing that you guys need to do, is
Yep.
to enforce the construction general
And
permit.
there's
and the SWIP.
many times where we're not involved with the SWIP inspections because the contractor does it itself. This is a great opportunity.
Right.
This is great because we are involved and we've got,
Yeah,
day-to-day
I
contact with
used
us, we
to,
need
because
to.
I used to have to deal with that, so I used to occasionally go out after heavy rainfalls and ask for their inspection records if I saw that something was out of whack.
it's their responsibility.
Yeah, and sometimes they could produce them and sometimes they couldn't. But I want to thank you for coming, and like I said, I was a little nervous. This is not a watershed area I'm totally familiar with, so I'm kind of diving in head first. But after you presented to me a couple months ago, I felt a lot more confident about what was going on, and I liked the plan, and I thought it was, I do think, just from what I saw, when I saw that French's Stream West, it looked really good.
Yeah.
And I was very confident in what I saw.
One of the
so.
nice things about this is sometimes when we're involved with projects that aren't this scale, we design a stormwater system and then we never get to see it again. The nice thing about this is we're seeing what works and continuing to learn from that and use what works and create the best development that we can.
That's great. I thank you for coming in to do the
Not a problem.
presentation. I know people were concerned, and like I said, I just based on what I saw visually out there, I felt a lot better about it. So
Yeah, and I'm sure we'd be happy to give an update once the master plan is sort of
Great.
settled down.
Thank
We're
you.
still in process, but
Is it possible for us to be copied on when you file your with the SRA board for? Is it like when they said it's like a planning board when you file the stormwater management plan and get copies of your O&M plans? Can we just like when you go in front of them?
When we file a notice of intent with the SRA, that's when we have the stormwater management plan, the operation and maintenance plan. The copies of those go to the conservation commissions for all 3 towns.
Okay, so our Concom should have copies of all the O&M plans and stuff?
Everything that was submitted with the notices of intent, yes.
Great, okay, that's great, awesome. Okay, awesome, great.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have a question, actually for Ms. Hall. A few months ago when we were talking about the Reed's Pond issue, there was some, I guess, speculation that the development here was impacting that. Based on that, it seems pretty clear that it's not, or if anything's happening, everything is really being mitigated. Is that?
Yeah, I would say
Kind of
the runoff is being mitigated. I think some of the sediment issues that I saw, obviously if there's sediment being discharged, that will eventually flush downstream and impact, capacity and things like that as it goes downstream. But I do feel like they're mitigating what they're supposed to be mitigating. Again, we're only looking at the area around the base. I know for a fact that, our own people also are encroaching on the stream as well, and that can impact it as well. And I don't know the last time we've done our dredging or any sort of work, or even vegetation removal of invasive species. That all impacts things as well. And I don't know when we last did that. So I think that to point the finger at one particular circumstance or one cause is not really going to get us anywhere.
No, and I agree, and I
just
just wanted to have that really clarified, because everything does look very detailed, and mitigating and all those things. So I just wanted. To,
ultimately we have to stamp this, so it's our professional licensure on the line. So
Yeah.
Is there a way to quantify if water is coming off the base at a faster rate than pre-development?
there certainly could be.
You can read their stormwater calcs in their stormwater management plan if you want. And it will tell you what the runoff is under all different circumstances.
Okay.
2-year storms, the 100-year, whatever they have to model. But they would have to. They have to meet the stormwater standards, and one of the standards is if you're creating more impervious, it's not redevelopment, it's new development, and you have to show that your runoff calculations, the way you've modeled them under certain scenarios, under the regs, that they do not exceed what they did before. And they have to certify that.
Yep.
And so, but that's why I asked, because that stormwater management plan is filed with our Concom. So we can actually get copies of those and look at them and look at the regs and look at the calcs and stuff and see it ourselves. So I think, and actually the checklist from DEP is actually a really easy read. It's like 3 pages. And it really just gives you the 10,000 foot view, so you don't have to get into all the numbers. So it's helpful.
Mr. Ryan, you got a question? Not really questions, but regarding French's Stream, when Deirdre and I went over and we inspected on the west side to see where it went and if there's extra water and if there's holdups and things. And if you extend a little further along and you come to the pond that butts up against the mustard field in Abington, and that particular pond is at least 2 to 3 feet down. At least 2 to 3 feet down, and it's only a short way from there. And it could be any plan to channel excess wastewater into that little pond that really doesn't do anything, because quite frankly would hold a vast amount of water if you put 2 to 3 feet in there and they only had one pipe that, I don't know how you'd run it, but the engineers would have to figure it out for the best way. But it just seems, I go to Texas a lot, and they have spillways where they spill the water into George Bush Park and that everything, the flood water, because they're so flat too.
Right.
They're 5 feet deep,
Yep.
and the little arroyos they have to take the water away, they fill up in 10 minutes,
Right.
So that they direct all that water into the swamps and fill those up so that the rest of the places don't flood. So now we have an area, if we have too much water in French's Stream, which I don't really believe is true, once we take the boards out of the pond, Reed's Pond is going to be at the right level too. And everybody's going to be happy, because I've checked downstream. Hanover, by the way, is going to be doing some work in those ponds down in Hanover because of the different pollutions and things that have been going on in those particular ponds, and there's a lot of extensive work going to be happening down there. So I don't know how that's going to affect the overall draining of French's Stream, because it meets drink water right down in there, And there's a cataract there where the water probably drops about 18 inches from French's Stream into the Factory Pond or Ford's Pond, whatever the first one is, But other than that, I don't think, if the pond is down 2 to 3 feet, we can't have an overall groundwater problem. So the problem's either going to be extra stormwater coming off, which, quite frankly, I go down there all the time and look at it. It doesn't look bad. Once the boards are out and the dam is lowered, Reed's Pond's going to be fine, and the rest of it's going to be fine until we have another one, like 2005, we had 10 inches of rain in 2 days, and the whole French's Stream from the Rockland place to the, to Summer Street was flooded. And we went in, I made an order from I was chairman of the board at that time, just to get the sewer department in there and clean it out. We bypassed the state because I declared a state of emergency. But anyway, we got it cleaned out, and we've had less problems ever since. There hasn't been the floods that we had then, but we didn't have the 10 inches in 2 days either, though. But I think once the boards are gone in the dam, which I guess we got permission almost to do it, that I think the stormwater coming out of the air base isn't going to be an issue at all, quite frankly. It's held it before, and what about the things like the beaver dams that are in the brooks and things? Like I know that French's Stream East is loaded with beavers. I don't know how many are in there, but the dams and everything are in there, blocking the water from going down the stream. And I don't know what the regulations are going to be doing that. It's got to be, I'm sure you get an environmental, study to see if you're going to get them, because they live under the stream. They don't live in a regular wooden house. They live under the brook. No, they do. I've been all through there millions of times, down in the rivers and everything else. So I don't know what you do about them, but.
Anybody else from the board?
I just have one more thing. You guys all set?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
good.
Not to stir the pot, but Route 18. So because I had a child-free and husband-free weekend, I used that weekend to review the EIR for Route 18. And they got an exemption to the stormwater standards for the impervious area in the creation of new runoff. They got a waiver. it didn't, there's not enough detail in the EIR for me to figure out which panel, I guess, of the plans they got the waiver on, whether it's further upstream on French's Stream or downstream. But I know as you're growing, as your plans are changing and developing, it may not be, it would be prudent to take a look at the areas that, maybe if you are contributing to similar areas, you want to know, you're going to want to know that. You're going to want to know how, because they are going to be discharging more water. Mass DOT is going to be doing that. So we want to make sure that we're mitigating if we can. And we also want to make sure that, we know, I would hate to see that not be included and then see the finger pointed at the wrong party at that point. Because like I said, I've read through the EIR, but it wasn't specific as to which outfalls are which catchment areas are going to be discharging more water. But I hope to get those filings from Abington and Weymouth to figure that out.
Be able to see, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd be happy to review that with you too.
Great, thank you.
Well, I would like to say thank you for coming, and it appears that
Thank you for having
at least
me.
the work that you've been doing thus far seems to be working and functioning as designed. So that's good for all of us. So we appreciate that. We appreciate you coming in for the presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving along to new business. Item number 5, we have ambulance billing rate request for an increase. Chief Duffy?
Good evening, everybody. Making a proposal to change the ambulance billing rates from current rates to a new rate, which I have provided with a table. Last time we changed billing rates was about 6 years ago to the day. I don't have the exact date, but I do know that a report that I had submitted back November 2011. We have not changed rates in those 6 years. I'm requesting that the rates that I've submitted go into effect on January 1st of 2018. Reason for the rate increase is pretty much just to an attempt to keep up with the cost of running the ambulance. The town will never, ever make money, be profitable in running an emergency 911 ambulance service. But if we can try and keep up with daily costs of that, it would be obviously raising the rates.
Well, I think that life safety far outweighs the cost of, we're not a business, we're here to provide service, so
Correct.
we want to be able to provide those services to our residents. Now, the proposed rates, are they what you would call industry standard or standard for what's going on between other municipalities?
Yep, so I did a study. These rates are just about the average of what is occurring in Plymouth County. I don't believe in raising a rate to the average or above an average or below an average. I believe in raising a rate to what we need it to be. So I did a study of pretty much a rough study. It's kind of a moving figure of how much it costs per run to operate the ambulance. Salaries, training, cost of the vehicle, cost of the equipment, cost of the fuel, mileage, kind of mix that all up into an equation, and it's about $530 per ambulance run for our 1,750 ambulance transports that we do to operate the ambulance. Our current rates that we have now, with the revenue we're bringing in, it's about $450, $470 per ambulance run. So we're working through the formulas. The rates that I'm showing here would bring us to $570 per run. Rough, and those are just for, these are estimates, obviously, some extrapolation, but the rates right now are based upon the Medicare rates. There's legislation in the State House now that's trying to control your ability to set our rates. You're the board that sets our rates, so they're looking to allow a set rate across the state for everybody. And that's gonna be based upon lobbyists for obviously the big healthcare. And that it'll be taken out of our control. So right now, while we can set our rates, part of legislation allows us Medicare plus 200%, Medicare plus 300%. We're trying to work and we'll find a happy medium. The Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, working with our local reps and senators to get a happy rate and, kind of cap it at something that works for the communities. We're thinking that Medicare plus 300% of the Medicare rate is that magic number. This number here that I proposed to you tonight would be Medicare plus 250%. So that is staying within the limits of what we're preaching.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
I just have, one, Chief. Based on like the legislation, Alan, do you know if like, the MMA is the MMA involved in
The
that
MMA
whole
is very
conversation?
involved in this, and
Okay.
we were just able to, within the Senate budget, with the help of the MMA, stop some legislation that had been proposed. So yes, the MMA is deeply involved.
And there was a big push by both the fire chief and the association as well as MMA, because at one point they were talking about sending checks for reimbursement back to the individuals rather than back to the communities.
You never get that.
So what would happen, if that happened, what would happen is if you needed a check for $1,000, you call up the ambulance, you take an ambulance ride, you put in an insurance claim, the insurance company sends you the $1,000, and then we have to try and chase you for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were able to collectively kill that, but.
Correct.
I don't have any other questions. Makes sense to me.
Anybody else? So,
I ask that the motion include effective January 1st.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed rates effective January 1st, 2018.
Second.
all those in favor?
I'm going to abstain, even though I probably don't have to.
So it's
Because
4-4,
my wife works in the
one
fire
abstention.
department, and it's, as long as I don't need to, I won't.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I can just get a plug in while I have some time on the air, sorry to do this, but the Rockland Firefighters Local 1602, the union, they are collecting Toys for Tots at the fire station. So brand new unwrapped toys can be dropped off there all the way up and through after the Christmas holidays. So thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Stole my thunder, Chief.
Item number 6, insurance mitigation account, Mr. Chalker.
Fairly simple explanation. When we did the Healthcare Reform Act and we played with the rates, went to the benchmark, part of that was that a percentage of the monies that were saved were supposed to be returned to those people that were subscribers, the employees that were partaking in our healthcare. They established a mitigation account. They had their own set of rules. This is not actually town money, although we monitor it for them, for how people could be reimbursed. The amendment in front of you, I did have a copy of the old agreement in your books, but the amendment in front of you just needs to be approved. And again, I would say it's not our money. We met with the Public Employees Committee, determined by representatives from each union. And they would like to, under Section 4 of the original Memorandum of Understanding, they would like to add a new D and re-letter the old D as E, and its new E and F, etc. It's in front of you as it reads. Any reimbursement claim which is denied by the treasurer may be appealed to the PEC Appeals Board. The PEC Appeals Board is made up of one representative of the fire, police, right, highway, park, tree, and school associations. Representatives from the school shall chair the board. If the majority of the board votes to approve the reimbursement, the claim will be approved. All decisions of the PEC Appeals Board are final and not subject to further appeals. Claims approved via this appeal process will be capped at $2,000 per eligible individual employee. So, again, it's their money. This is how they want to run the employees' reimbursement. It does require a vote as we're party to the agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous
Just
vote.
one question,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, real quick. In terms of the timeline, how, like in the money in that fund, how long is it projected that there could be funding there?
I don't know that there's a projection, but there's a healthy balance. I believe it's somewhere north of $150,000 still. It started out somewhere. We originally funded it, I believe, at $175,000, which was supposed to represent 1/4 of our savings as a result of the healthcare reform that we did, and $75,000 the second year. That might have been a little larger than our 1/4 savings because, as you know, and I've complained about Mayflower in the past, they didn't set the rates according to our benchmark. They used some of us that went to benchmark to subsidize their other programs, on and on. We have saved money as a result, which has benefited everybody, but we had to establish that they get it. Now, they could have done what's called a premium holiday. They could have chosen to spend the money down by telling everyone you don't have to spend on insurance this year, or they could have driven down their own contribution, paid a contribution. However they did it, this is how they chose to keep it for those extraordinary expenses that individuals might have, so that they might be reimbursed above and beyond the normal deductibles and copays.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda, item number 7, license renewals. Mr. Chalker.
And again, please make the motion approved pending all obligations having been met, although I believe they all have been. A common victual license for the Brown Bag Deli on Weymouth Street, D'Angelo's Sandwich Shop on Market Street, and the Rockland Golf Course on Plain Street.
Motion to approve pending all obligations are met.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Thank you.
Automatic amusement for the Fraternal Order of Eagles at Park Street.
Motion to approve
Second.
pending all obligations.
Second.
All those in favor?
Entertainment license, Fraternal Order of the, I'm sorry, has there been a vote?
Yeah.
Here's a vote.
Entertainment license, Fraternal Order of the Eagles on Park Street and Rockland Golf Course on Plain Street.
Motion to approve pending all obligations are met.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Thank you.
Lodging license for the Union Street Realty Trust at 5 Union Street.
Motion to approve pending all obligations have been met.
Second.
All those in favor?
Good.
It's unanimous vote. Thank you.
And Class 2 license for B1 Automotive Auto Trade on Center Street, Trust Petroleum on Market Street, Fader Motors on Bishop Street.
Motion to approve pending all obligations have been met.
Second.
And I just want to add that with the Class 2s, that it's subject to make sure under the obligations that they're comply with zoning as well, because I know a lot of these Class 2s have zoning requirements that go with them, and it's the only chance we get to make sure they're in compliance is when there's renewal. So, all those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Thank you. Item number 8, we have New Year's Eve late night hours request. Mr. Chalker?
Mr. Chairman, we have a request, and we get this typically somebody first, and then the board passes an all-encompassing motion. The Rockland Eagles would like to request permission to remain open until 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve. And thank you, and have a wonderful and prosperous New Year from the Eagles. Typically, we ask that any establishment interested in staying open till 2 a.m. beyond their normal license send a request into the board. We notify the police department, but it has to be in writing.
Motion to approve that the Rockland Eagles stay open until 2 a.m. and any other licensed person can do it also if they send a letter in.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Thank you.
Hold on, I'm in the table, you know.
Okay,
it-
item number 9.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, someone asked whether or not we voted on the mitigation account approval.
I don't think we did.
Okay. Is
Motion
there
to
a-
approve?
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote.
Mr. Mullen got me off topic, and he forgot to have a vote. I'm sorry.
Well, actually, we had the vote before that. He asked the question
Oh, yeah, no,
afterwards.
We did
Oh,
vote,
yeah.
yeah.
We did
He said
vote.
it, yeah.
That is true.
Then he asked.
So now we voted twice, the same outcome.
I get to watch the meeting tomorrow, so.
Dave's going to have to rewind that.
There you go.
There you go.
And then a chopping floor.
Mr. Chairman, just an update, and it was mentioned earlier regarding water levels and everything. Reed Pond Conservation has approved the removal of the boards, so we have the go-ahead to do that. Dave Taylor is coordinating with District 5 and Mass Department of Transportation. I'm not sure what day
We
it'll
like to
happen,
be
but
contacted, us poor people that have
we'll
been in
be
the hole a
doing
few
it.
times. I
We
want to
will-
see my water go away, please.
we will be doing it shortly.
So it's good news. We've made progress. Okay, next up, item number 10, Town Administrator's Report and Correspondence. Mr. Chalker.
Just a reminder, the overnight parking ban for the winter is in effect now, and the police typically do the first week of courtesy tickets, but beginning very shortly, the tickets count. And so there is no overnight parking, number one, and there is no on-street parking during any kind of storm emergency. If it's snowing and we have to plow, cars cannot be on the street even during the day. In your packet is a letter, correspondence. Please accept this letter of resignation from the Southfield Advisory Committee. They do not wish to appear in conflict with the situation. Their current appointment is a treasurer. As you know, Eric Hart has been serving as a accountant treasurer over there for the past couple of weeks or so, bailing them out. They did have a change in personnel. He was asked to help them out, and my understanding is they're very pleased with the work, and he's, of course, as Eric always does, digging in over there on a couple of items. I know Tom Henderson has already told me he's doing a great job, but I asked for a motion to accept that with regret, and we can certainly advertise that position.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
We have, just for your knowledge, Robert McDonald, the janitor custodian up to the community center, is retiring effective January 2nd. We are conducting, just to let you know, also like to accept his resignation with regret. And we are advertising, of course, internally first before a public posting goes forward for that position. He has worked for us for 17 years. And Dan's been great about filling in here when people have vacations and covering, and certainly
Is that
one
a
of those.
full-time or a part-time job?
It's full-time, but he's been one of the great unsung heroes, because that is a very old building, and you really need to know the bones to keep the heating system and the plumbing system and everything working up there. He's been a joy to work with, and certainly a very cooperative employee.
Quick question on that. I know early in the summer, I believe, we began a tradition of having like retiring employees in, and to thank them. Would we be able to invite him in as well
We
at the
could
beginning of the
certainly
year?
invite him if you wished. I will let him know.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Has there been a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? It's a vote, thank you.
And I had Toys for Tots in my book, but the chief stole my thunder, so we do have Christmas season coming along, and I would urge the public to do what they can. I know that Rockland has its own usual account as well as the Toys for Tots, so thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by the individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of all the Board of Selectmen, and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. With that, Mr. Laughlin.
Yeah, just a couple things tonight. December 7th, the Rockland Library will be having a wine hour, kind of an open house from 5:30 to 7:30 at the library. And December 13th, the Rockland Senior Center has an open house as well from 1 to 3 p.m. Hors d'oeuvres will be served. Anybody's welcome. And then as far as Alan and I, we had a conversation the other day. We discussed a couple weeks ago about the charter committee, and to this point, I don't believe anybody's applied. We're looking to revisit the charter and move forward with it, review it, and it'd people always looking to get involved. I think it's a great committee to get on, start from scratch, and volunteer.
Thank you. Ms. Hall?
I just have a few things. I'm going to mention the Teen Center again. They're having their winter holiday party on December 22nd. They're going to be raffling off a PlayStation 4, so obviously my kids are very excited. They need volunteers to help out on the evenings, and they need board members. So it's a short commitment. They meet monthly. The board meets monthly on Fridays from like 6 to 7. The Teen Center itself is 7 to 10. They're going to be having some staffing changes, so they're looking for, I believe we even have a posting on the town website. So we're hiring for those hours to assist with the Teen Center, and we're also looking for those who might want to volunteer for the board. I wanted to just mention, I won't steal Mr. Mullins' thunder on his Reimagine Rockland project, but I did want to mention that I am chairing the subcommittee on infrastructure and parking. I have maybe 3 or 4 volunteers. I'd love some more. As you could see, I get very excited about pipes and water and all sorts of great things, and I would really love for some people to come out and join the subcommittee with me. It will definitely be entertaining. So I'm just encouraging people to come out. Also, I was able to attend the most recent Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks meeting, and I'm delighted to state that our water moratorium is over. It is going to be reviewed on a month-to-month basis as developments come in to ask for permission to seek service from the Rockland Joint Waterworks. So that's a good thing. The Route 18 mitigation plan is on my agenda. I mentioned that during the stormwater presentation. The Route 18 project is going to start very soon, but I'm concerned about the additional runoff from the although I'm sure we would all love wider Route 18 so we don't have to sit in traffic so much, there may be some flooding implications, so I'm going to look into that a little further. And today I actually was able to get to a FEMA training, which was really, really good. It was in the FEMA building, the federal building for FEMA. It was for municipal attorneys and how to really dig into the statutory requirements of all their grant programs. Having worked only in kind of flooding and snow emergencies, it was kind of interesting to find out all the different types of programs that FEMA does have beyond what I know in my universe. So I got a lot of information from it, and I look forward to using it. Well, maybe not. Maybe hopefully we don't have a disaster. But if we do, I look forward to using that information in the future. So thank you.
I don't really have a lot. It was interesting to go over the airbase and check out French's Stream, and I hadn't been over there really through there in a few years and see what the difference is and what's going on over there. Again, French's, the Reed's Pond thing I think will be cured when we lower those boards, and all those people will be happy. Other than that, I go uptown every morning, really early in the morning, and I see all the delinquent parkers parked there, and they all have little red stickers on their door handles or door windows. So just know that the red ones are going to be replaced by the white ones, or whatever color they are. That means you pay the money. And knowing the parking clerk like I do, your chances of surviving any appeal is about nil. So just, get off the streets overnight now, find the parking where you're supposed to be, so that if a snowstorm comes, and we're expecting some snow maybe next week, but probably not a lot to plow, we hope, but just be prepared for it. Other than that, I haven't really much to say. The town's doing well, quite frankly, and let's keep it going.
I just have a few things. First of all, piggybacking on Mr. Laughlin and like Ms. Hall's comment, we had a wonderful kickoff Reimagine Rockland organizational meeting last Thursday night, I think, Wednesday night, I'm sorry. And yeah, these days are going by crazy. But a great meeting. We now have 5 active subcommittees, subcommittees as as Ms. Hall mentioned, have more members than others, but that's okay. We're still excited. But I will be getting going fast and furious after the new year. Already working on a bunch of things, so stay tuned for a whole bunch of events and upcoming information on that. The second thing, I was wondering at the December 19th meeting if we could include on our agenda, hopefully, in terms of, I think we're at a point now where it might be helpful to have more regular and actually, we've never had them actually before, to my knowledge, but actually quarterly meetings with members of the school committee. So the full school committee, and our full board, will sit together as a whole. I think over the past few months, there's been some issues, there's been some conversations. Some people have been involved, others haven't, and just a whole thing of events that have happened. And there's a lot of amazing things happening after schools and with us. I just think where we are as a town, where we are as a board, and the school committee in terms of our budget, in terms of how we communicate interdepartmentally, how we really make sure we have a strategy for the building projects moving forward. I think there's a bunch of issues that actually, for the first time in my recollection, and really actually require us to meet regularly and to make sure we're sharing information with all of us so we can all be on the same page. And as a school department, our liaison, and as a liaison to the school committee, I've already talked informally with members of the school committee about this idea. They're really excited about it. And they too see the same opportunities based on everything we have happening, working together, and making sure we're really working together to serve the residents of Rockland. So if we can just, in the meantime, I'll continue the conversations I've had with them and maybe come up with a framework in terms of when to meet, agenda items and things like that. But if we could just talk about it as a full board on the 19th, that'll be great.
That's what we were planning already. We have a couple of school items to discuss at the next meeting, so
That's
be a
good.
great opportunity for that.
That's good to learn.
Come here, and we'll go there, and every other meeting or something, every time we do? When's the last time the Board of Selectmen's been over to the school committee and sat down with you guys?
Well,
Rather than have you come here every time?
Well, that's part of the genesis.
Well,
So
They got much nicer digs over there. But no, we have had some conversations, and the conversations were started, Mike, so that we could go through and bring them to this board, and I'm sure the chairman of the school committee will be bringing them to his board as well. So we have been working behind the scenes a little bit to try to find out how we can better serve Rockland and how we can better work together as boards, especially with the future and a new elementary school coming on that we're all going to be pursuing for the town. So we've already been working in parallel with that.
yeah, I just think we should all be on the same page on those things as well.
Well, we will be. What
So-
we're trying to do is find some of the information, find some common ground so we can come up with some ideas and bring them back to the board so that we can actually hopefully make some productive decisions amongst the boards. So that's the intent.
As long as they involve the liaisons and people, I just think
Yeah,
that
no,
would be helpful.
that's not a problem.
So going
Again, what
forward.
we had a meeting, and there were some issues that were brought up, and they were discussed, and we've been working on resolving those issues. So once we determine what the resolve will be, the intent is to bring it before both boards so that we can all be made aware of what the actual issues were, how we plan on, we'll say, moving forward those issues for the benefit of all parties, mainly the residents of Rockland. And then we would then hopefully continue on with that dialogue and make sure that we can be in line to pursue a school. I know you're passionate about it, being a former school committee member,
Yeah,
but
no.
sometimes...
I know, I'm happy to learn about this.
No, sometimes it's difficult because sometimes we don't know there's a problem until someone brings it to one another's attention. And that's what had happened last week. There was a small issue that we're working through right now, and I think we're headed in the right direction. So we're going to bring that up before the board at the next agenda as well. We have the school choice issue that we need to vote on. I know that talking to the superintendent who's in the audience, that they're in support of it, but again, I got a letter that a school choice association or group is looking to see what the town wants to do with it so that it can be published. So again, any of that stuff we have to vote as a board, so that'll be at our next meeting as well. Did you have anything else with your comments?
I know, no, that's all I have.
Okay.
Can I say one brief thing that?
Sure.
Regarding the cooperation business, we go back to Bill Compton's years, and we worked out a deal with them that, you know, if you have money left over at the end of the year, turn it in, we won't cut your budget. It used to be if you had $100,000 left over and you didn't spend it, the town would cut your budget that $100,000. We worked it out with him that if you have that money left over, turn it back in, and you'll still have it in the budget next year in case you need it. And that gave the town more free cash at the time. And then we had the Chapter 70 thing where the Chapter 70 money went down $1 million plus, or whatever it was, $1.5 million. And that caused a big problem between the school committee and the town, because now the schools lost the money, but we're going to have to cut fire and police because the school didn't make their money that year. And so there was a big fight at one of these meetings, you know, where the school committee sat back there and we were throwing stones at each other, so to speak. And we had a little bit of a row over it, and that's where the 70-30 split come out of, eventually, so that there was no more issues. If you're cut budget, you're cut the budget. I'm sure that if there was another $2 million hit or something like that, somehow we could work it out, but that's where all this, you know, and that's part of the cooperation, if you will, between the schools and the committee, where prior to that, there was really none. I see it, I've been around a long time, so I've seen the gradual, more cooperative effort for the two boards to get together to solve the problem for the whole town and not just each other's side. So I'm all for what Mike's saying, just, you know, if we can sit down, even if we disagree, we can at least sit down and agree to disagree so that if there is an issue or a problem, we can work it out in a cooperative manner and not just stand back like Republicans and Democrats screaming at each other, who's the stupid ones, you know, because it's not. We got two hard-working boards that want to make sure that this town is in good shape all the way around, and I'm sure we will do it. So.
Well, I think that's been demonstrated over the last few years that all the boards, all the departments, everybody has been working in cooperation throughout town. And in fact, Rockland's in great shape because of that, because we haven't pitted one department against another department. We've always made sure that we take a look at it as it's a global, it's for everybody. Even though some departments are smaller, some are larger, we try to make sure that all departments are accommodated. And again, this will all be coming back up again, because as you know, annually, starting in January, it's when the budgets start for renewal and we go through the line items and all that stuff. So everybody, it's time where everyone starts to go through. And what happened was with last year's amount of free cash, which was an anomaly, there was some reasons for that. We had some FEMA reimbursements, we had some different items that came through which put the town in better shape, okay? And we were able to take those funds with free cash and invest those into capital improvements in town, whether that was a piece of equipment for the fire department, a piece of equipment for police or schools or park. I mean, so everything has been done with prudence and everything's been done so that money is looked at, that we try to make it work for everybody, and that at the same time we can improve services for the residents because it's their tax dollars. That's what it comes down to. So I think all departments, all people, although as Larry said, sometimes you have disagreements, but disagreements can be healthy because that's how you can find out what's bothering someone and how you can work to fix that. So if everything was rosy all the time, we wouldn't have the ability to go back and take a look at things and fix things and make things work. And the only reason we know about problems is when problems are brought to us, regardless of what they are, whether they're budgets, whether with a committee in town, a different department in town, whether it's a resident, or whether, I mean, you talk about the Reed's Pond thing. Although it was a big problem to a small number of people, we were still able to work through it. It took some time, but now we have a resolution, and shortly we should see the benefit of that resolution. I mean, that's just a simple thing. I mean, all these things, sometimes they take a little bit of time, or sometimes they have to be worked through. And as everybody knows, because everybody knows somebody in town, there's always, sometimes people want to call out to people that they know who can try to help them, or we can say, try to, I don't want to use the word influence, but try to get them to hear their side of the story. My approach as chairman has always been to take a look at both sides openly and go through and come up with a resolution that's going to be, if in anything, a compromise. So it's a good compromise so that both parties can walk away and they can feel that they won something, but at the same time they may have lost something. And that's the best type of compromise and negotiation, because it doesn't want to be one-sided.
You know that.
And
I think all of them like that.
no, and we have to be. But again, sometimes we don't know what a problem is until we look at it. And as many of the board members are, like ourselves here, we're part-time, so we have limited amount of time and resources available. And same as a lot of different people, and we all kind of split off. I mean, we applaud what you're doing with Reimagine Rockland. It takes a lot of effort, and it's something that's hopefully going to bear fruit for the town in the very near future, if not the long term. You take.
I guess specifically all I was saying, and you know, we have all these lanes and areas, but specifically, despite my background as a school committee member, which I think is really healthy and a good experience, I'm also the school committee liaison as well. And I was just, to be completely honest with everyone here, just a little caught off guard to hear about, you know, these things underway, without actually having a conversation as like a full board, or any type of board, before they happen.
Well, the first thing we had to do was identify the problem. I think we've identified the problem. Now we're working towards a solution. And again, when we initially found out about the problem, to be honest with you, I was a little blindsided about the problem, the magnitude of the problem, and the amount of issues. I thought I was going to a meeting about one issue that was announced, okay, and it became a multitude of issues, which again precipitated further conversation, and we'll continue to have more conversations with how these, we'll say, issues could be resolved. But again, it's not for tonight because it's not on the agenda. It's really, so we're already going to have it on the December 19th meeting as well. So we're working towards that. And I appreciate your candor as far as bringing it up, but at the time I went to a meeting, as I've done many in the past, with just myself and the town administrator, town accountant, some members of the school committee, invited to a meeting to look at something. So, and again, that's all it was, to look. So, all right. With that, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out for the holiday stroll. It was a great stroll. Again, it just goes to show how Rockland is. A lot of people come out and enjoyed it. The weather was great. It was good to see a lot of people come out for the stroll. As Mr. Chalker had mentioned earlier, we do have an overnight parking ban. As Mr. Ryan mentioned, he's hoping for snow. Me, on the other hand, are hoping for no snow because we want to make sure that we can hopefully don't have a huge highway snow deficit this year. So we'll keep the snow up north, you know. So if you want to go play in the snow, go north, you know. But again, as far as the boards and things, as Mr. Loeffler mentioned, there are openings for the charter committee. SRA, we had a resignation, so there's going to be an advisory board committee opening for that. And please, anybody who can get involved, we appreciate the time it takes, because as being volunteers ourselves, we can't do it all, and we need everybody's help to make it better. We do not have an executive session tonight. That grievance has been withdrawn. So with that, I'd like to,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you all.